Hey, hello everybody. This is David Royer, and I'm going to be hosting this webinar scheduled to start. Now, I've got noon central right now. We've still got a lot of people signing on, so please bear with me. We're going to start the webinar in exactly 1 minute from right now. Thank you. Hey, hello everybody. My name is David Royer. I'm going to be hosting this webinar, and we're going to get started. First of all, I want to thank all of you for being on today. I wanted to let you know that this broadcast is scheduled to last for approximately 1 hour. Now, I know many of you have been on these types of broadcasts before about marketing systems, as I have as well. And I think for the most part, you never really see the whole marketing system. They allude to, we have this, we have that for you, et cetera, et cetera. Today is going to be a little bit different. During this webcast, you're going to see the complete 401k rollover marketing system so that you're going to have all the information you need to decide if this is a fit for your practice. And some of the things we're going to go over, we're going to have seminar invitations that work for both food and no food events. We're going to go through the complete IRA 401k consumer workshop PowerPoint. The name of the workshop is Top 10 IRA Mistakes. We're also going to talk about the book, Top 10 IRA Mistakes, that this workshop is based on. And we're going to go briefly through a non-seminar IRA prospecting system. So anyhow, with that, just want to let you know you're going to be muted throughout the broadcast. You have a panel where you can type in questions. If you have any questions, please type them in, and we will be certain to get back to you to get your questions answered. Just a little bit of history. Back in 2002, there was significant change in the tax code, and it created a tremendous financial opportunity for those that own IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, et cetera. And it also became a tremendous financial planning tool for advisors. And in 2004, I built the course Keys to the IRA Kingdom, which I've taught nationally. And we've had over 5,000 advisors attend the course since then. And I authored the book Top 10 IRA Mistakes to help you prospect for IRA rollover business. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The name of my company is DLCA Enterprises, and we are focused on helping you have IRA and 401k rollover success. It's really all about selling more annuities, more life insurance, and those of you securities licensed, more managed money to owners of qualified accounts, and that includes IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, SEPs, TSPs, etc. Incidentally, you might want to take down my phone number if something happens and you get, if you drop off the call or an unexpected client drops by your office, reach out to me so that we can get the information to you. My direct line is 214-705-0124. Now, the biggest question is, why would you want to focus your practice in the qualified market? I'm going to give you a lot of good reasons. One, we know that 401k plans have replaced defined benefit pension plans. Now, this is a good thing for us as advisors because, you know, those defined benefit pension plans, this was not money that we could move. Now that the 401k plans have taken over, beginning as early as age 59 and a half, this money is liquid and can be rolled over. There's 10,000 boomers that are making IRA and 401k rollover decisions every single day. And for most boomers, their 401k plans are worth more than the equity in their homes. That's how important these plans are to them. We've also learned that over 70% of 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, and other company-sponsored plans now allow for what is called an in-service rollover. That simply means at age 59 and a half, if they're concerned about how their mutual funds in these plans are performing, and they want to move to safety, they can move the principal of that money out of that 401k into an IRA. And here's the best part. They can continue to make contributions and continue to enjoy company matching funds. We have 4,000 seniors turning 70 and a half every day going into forced distribution, and they need your help. The Investment Company Institute has estimated there's approximately $28 trillion in America's retirement assets, and LIMRA has stated that the IRA rollover market will increase to $515 billion this year. So getting back to the question, well, why would you want to focus your practice on the qualified market? The simple answer is that's where the opportunity is. And more good answers. Now, we just mentioned that defined benefit plans are a thing of the past, which it turns out to be a good thing for advisors. So today, most boomers are retiring with a 401k, maybe it's an IRA, and Social Security. So Social Security and their IRA and 401k plans have turned out to be the hot buttons for boomers. And these boomers now represent the majority of the retirement market. So getting back to the question, why focus on the qualified market? Well, that's where the retirement market is growing. Now, here is a chart that goes all the way back to the year 2000. This is projected through, or actually recorded through quarter one of 2018, right over here. And you notice back in 2000, there was $11.6 trillion in America's retirement plans. Just 18 years later, that has increased to $28 trillion. Now, if you look here at the bottom, you can see that the blue bars, the IRAs are growing and starting to level off right around here in 2017. The defined contribution plans are continuing to grow. Now, this is typically going to be a 401k or 403b. But what I want you to pay particular attention to is starting in 2015, there was roughly $2 trillion in annuity reserves, and there's just a little over $2 trillion all the way through first quarter of 2018. So between 2015 and 2018, there's been very little change in annuity reserves. So what this is about today is moving some of these IRAs that are maybe they're currently in securities, these people are aging, they're concerned about it, and also moving some of these 401k and 403b plans up to this tier into annuity reserves. And maybe we can see this number grow by the end of 2019. Now, this chart tracks the number of individuals in the United States that are 65 and older, and it goes all the way back to 1900, and I know you're not concerned about that, but it's projected through the year 2030. So if we look at where we are today, we have 10,000 boomers turning age 65 every single day and making decisions about what they're going to do with their 401ks, 403bs, TSP plans, etc. They currently control the overwhelming wealth of this nation. And I want to point out, $28 trillion is going into motion. This is the biggest event in the history of the financial services industry. Now, I want to take a moment just to talk a little bit about accumulation versus distribution. There are two phases. The accumulation phase is when you're putting money into your 401k or 403b, IRA, etc. And during that accumulation phase, life was really very simple. There were only three considerations. One, am I eligible to contribute? Number two, how much can I contribute? And number three, where do I want to put the money? Life was really very simple. During the distribution phase, it becomes extremely complicated. There are landmines in the Internal Revenue Code that are easily triggered, and there are mistakes that are being made by over 80% of people that own IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, etc. So we're going to be talking about distribution. Now, where the qualified money is just as important as how much there is. What we learned from the Investment Company Institute, 47% of that roughly $28 trillion is in mutual funds. There's an additional 36% in other securities, only 10% in banks and thrifts, and insurance companies have a mere 8% in the form of annuity reserves. And ladies and gentlemen, if you had the tools to show your clients why, when they leave that accumulation phase and enter the distribution phase, for at least some of their qualified retirement accounts, insurance companies and annuities are going to be an ideal solution. That would be a very powerful tool. But if you add together the 47% that's in mutual funds to the 36% that's in other securities, you'll see that 83% of roughly $28 trillion in one form or another is at risk on Wall Street. So, and these people are maturing, they're getting older, their risk tolerance is changing. This is a tremendous opportunity for annuity producers, life producers, and also managed money producers. So this today is really all about how do you become the IRA rollover expert in your market area. How do you get in front of qualified prospects that have large IRAs, 401ks, and other qualified retirement accounts? How do you get in front of those people? And then how do you attract and capture those rollover accounts? And also it's very important, because this is big business, how to become an expert in-service 401k rollovers. As I said earlier, at age 59 and a half and older, even while people are still working, they can roll their 401k or 403b into a safe place in an IRA and still continue to make contributions and still get company matching funds. So it's how do you use IRA and 401k rollover opportunities to grow your business? Now comes the big question. How do I get in front of the prospects that have large IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSBs, and other qualified accounts? Ladies and gentlemen, that has always been the big question. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how trained you are. If you can't get in front of these individuals under positive circumstances, it's really leading to nowhere. So we have built the complete IRA 401k rollover system, and it's based on my book, Top 10 IRA Mistakes and How to Avoid IRA Tax Traps. The complete system includes 6 components. 1, and I'm going to be showing these to you, seminar invitations that work. Number 2, a complete IRA 401k consumer workshop PowerPoint. I am actually going to go through that PowerPoint from the first slide to the very end where we close for appointments. We've also built for you a workshop training video so that you can get prepared to give this presentation. We have 10 hours of online IRA distribution training. That's my course, Keys to the IRA Kingdom. And we also have non-seminar IRA prospecting systems, and it's all topped off with seminar in a book, The Top 10 IRA Mistakes. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through the Top 10 IRA Mistakes consumer workshop based on the book, Top 10 IRA Mistakes. But before I do that, I want to show you all pieces of the component, or all components of the system. We have non-seminar IRA rollover lead generation. Now, the first one is a book offer. This is primarily built for clients, current clients, but can also go out to prospects. And on the top, it just says, I was recently introduced to a new book, etc. It's helped a lot of my clients that have IRAs, 401ks, has the book icon in the middle, and it has a list of the things that they will learn from the book. Please call my office today to receive your complimentary copy. So that's a letter that you send out primarily to current clients or hot prospects. We also have a book offer postcard, and I'll just read it to you. You're invited to receive a complimentary copy of the Top 10 IRA Mistakes. Important alert for IRA and 401k owners. 2019 critical IRA and 401k rules you need to know. That's the front card of the postcard. And here's the back. And it has all of the different bullet points that are going to get their attention. Call today for your free copy. So that's non-seminar IRA rollover lead generation. Now we're going to go into workshop invitations. And you know, I've been in this business for over 35 years. Now, one thing that I've noticed, the most successful agents in the country have one thing in common. They are consistently doing consumer workshops. They are consistently getting their message in front of prospective clients. So we've developed workshop invitations. Now, this first one is a no food. And you're invited to the I didn't know that about my IRA 401k free educational workshop, important alert, etc. Has the same 10 bullet points that are really going to want them to reach out to you and to attend your workshop. We also have dinner events. This can be done for lunch. It has the same bullet points. The only difference here is in this one, we're adding food. So these have been field tested. These workshop invitations work. They pull approximately 1%. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to take you through the entire consumer workshop. It's going to take about 35 to 40 minutes. And I wanted to tell you in advance, we average over 50% appointments. So if you have 20 people at your workshop, you will meet with approximately 10 of those, and for some people even higher. So ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for attending my workshop today. And the workshop we are about to go through is called The Top 10 IRA Mistakes, and it's based on the book written by David Royer, a nationally recognized IRA expert. And it's written in very simple and plain English. And the name of the book is Top 10 IRA Mistakes and How to Avoid IRA Tax Traps. Now, in the time we have together today, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to be able to dig down into all of the details, but I'm going to go through all of the top 10 mistakes. We're going to hit the high points. And incidentally, those of you that choose to meet with me that have additional questions, I'm going to give you a complimentary copy of David's book so that you can really drill down on the areas that you want to. So welcome to the Top 10 IRA Mistakes workshop and how to avoid IRA tax traps. So first, before we get into it, let's take a brief look at the history of retirement plans in America. How did all of this get started? Well, in August 14th, 1935, President Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act into law. Now, he did that to help people supplement their personal savings. Now, you think about that, it was 1935. It was right after the Great Depression. But it was never intended to replace their personal savings. Then, in 1974, Congress passed the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, or ERISA, and this gave birth to a lot of the modern-day IRAs, 401ks, SEPs, 403bs, the kind of plans that most of you have contributed to for most of your income-earning lives. Now, the purpose was to give Americans more incentive to plan for their own retirement, but there was a second agenda, and ladies and gentlemen, that was to be less dependent on Uncle Sam. So I'm going to make a point here, and the point is this. There has never been a government that taxed its people for the purpose of giving the money back to them so that they could have a dignified retirement. And I'm going to read a famous quote to prove that to you. And as I'm reading this, you're going to think that, oh, this is pretty current stuff. So let me read it. The national budget must be balanced. Public debt must be reduced. The arrogance of authorities must be moderated and controlled. Payments to foreign governments must be reduced if this nation doesn't want to go bankrupt, and people must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance. You know, when I first read that, I thought, well, that was probably written in the last 4 or 5 years. Well, that's a quote from Marcus Tullius Cicero all the way back to 55 BC. So again, let me remake that point. There has never been a government that taxed its people for the purpose of giving that money back to them to help them have a dignified retirement. Now, the government wanted you to save, and so they offered incentives for you to save. You got tax deductions on the contributions. You didn't have to pay tax on that money. And as it grew, as it earned interest, you got tax deferral on the gain. Also, payroll deduction number 3 here. This was a big one. It was so easy. You never saw that money. It was deducted from your pay, put right into your 401k or 403b, and you got used to living without it, and those accounts have really grown. And number 4, exemption from creditors. Were there any catches? Absolutely. And we refer to those as tax prison. All distributions are fully taxable or fully income taxable. So when you take money out of these untaxed accounts, you're going to pay tax at your current tax bracket. If you wanted to take money out before age 59 and a half, there was a 10% penalty. Now, the government wants you and forces you to start taking distributions at age 70 and a half, and if you fail to take those required distributions beginning after you turn 70 and a half, there is a 50% penalty. So the proposition was really this. You were given the opportunity to save the tax on the seed. By seed, I'm referring to the money that you contributed to these accounts all these years. You save the tax temporarily on the seed. And then after you take many years of risk and many years of patience and doing without, and you grow that seed into a crop, this is when the IRS comes back and wants you to pay tax on the entire crop. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a way to reverse this process, and we are going to address that during this workshop. So, welcome to the Top 10 IRA Mistakes, and approximately 80% of IRA owners make these mistakes. And incidentally, as I go through this workshop, if you feel like you're making any of those mistakes, please make a notation and be sure to bring that to my attention so that we can address that. We're going to start out with mistake number 1, missing a required minimum distribution. Your first distribution is due by April the 1st of the year after the year you turn age 70 and a half. All future distributions must be taken by December 31st of subsequent years. If any of these distributions are missed, the government will charge a 50% excise tax. And incidentally, this is the #1 mistake made by not only IRA owners, but also by their beneficiaries. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say based on the amount of money in your IRA and your age, your current required distribution for this past year was $10,000. That's what you were supposed to withdraw and pay tax on. But December 31st has come and gone, and you failed to take that distribution. Well, you're still going to have to pay tax on it. So I'm ballparking the tax here at 30% or $3,000. So that would assume federal income tax, and in some cases there'll be some state income tax on top of that. Then the IRS goes right back up to this $10,000 and charges you an additional $5,000 excise tax, 1/2 the distribution. So if you add the income tax and the penalty together, the total is $8,000 out of your $10,000 distribution. So out of that $10,000 distribution that was earmarked for your retirement, $8,000 winds up going to the IRS, and only $2,000 is left over for you. You know what just happened? The IRS just became your senior partner. We're going to move into mistake number 2. Excuse me. And that's not taking advantage of the stretch option. This is something new. This is something that occurred back in 2002. Yet as I do these workshops around the country, very few people are aware of this financial planning opportunity and how they can get the maximum horsepower out of their IRAs, 401ks, etc. So for an example, I'm going to use the Bunker family, and let's say Archie's got a $200,000 IRA, and I want to show you how the stretch option would work. Now, we're going to make the assumption that Archie's 65, Edith's 65, they have a daughter, Gloria, age 35, and 2 grandchildren, ages 6 and 2. The other assumption we're going to make is they take only their required minimum distributions. So during Archie's life expectancy, he'll have taken his, and when he passes, we asked Archie and Edith, if there's money left in this account, where do you want it to go to? And they said, well, we want to give 50% to our daughter Gloria to help raise those grandchildren, but we also want to leave something directly to those grandchildren so that they get a birthday present from us every year, not for the rest of our lives, but for the rest of their lives. So the beneficiaries got set up 50% to Gloria and 25% to each of the grandchildren. Let me show you how the distributions will work, and here we're assuming a 5% rate of return. Archie just taking his required distribution over his normal life expectancy, he would withdraw $177,000. Now, we're going to assume that Edith survives Archie by 4 years. She lives 4 years longer. There's no interruption in income during that 4-year period. Edith will continue to have income from those IRAs, totaling roughly $71,000. But look what happens with Gloria and the grandchildren. There's going to be money left in that account when Archie and Edith are gone. And remember, Gloria got half over her life expectancy. She'll receive $265,000 of income. And look at these 2 grandchildren. Even though they only got 25%, each of them is going to receive over their entire life expectancy over $300,000. So the total distribution from that $200,000 IRA, because it was set up properly, and this is done with the beneficiary designations, it's stretched out to over $1.2 million of income. Let's go to mistake number 3. Now, folks, this is where we find a lot of mistakes. We're going to spend a little bit more time on this one, and it's not properly designating beneficiaries. See, only a designated beneficiary can stretch the distributions over their individual life expectancies. Now, if they're not designated, then they have to pay all the tax in 5 years. So they lose that deferral, and they lose all that interest. But here's the catch. Only the IRA owner or inheriting spouse can designate beneficiaries for the purpose of them being able to stretch out those distributions. So in the case of Archie and Edith, they had to designate those beneficiaries while they were living. So let's move on. Now, there are 2 ways to set up non-spousal beneficiaries, and now I'm talking predominantly about the children and the grandchildren. There's the 2-tier approach, and there's a 1-tier approach. And ladies and gentlemen, knowing the difference between these 2 approaches is absolutely critical. So I'm going to walk you through both of them. Let's look at the 2-tier approach. Now, this will probably sound familiar to you. The IRA owner names his or her spouse as the primary beneficiary, and then they name their 2 children as contingent beneficiaries. Well, there's a problem with that because child number 1 has given them 2 grandchildren, but the IRA owner and spouse have not designated them. They've designated their 2 children. What is the consequence of that? The grandchildren get disinherited. Let me show you how the 1-tier approach works. And folks, this is the way it should be set up. The IRA owner designates their surviving spouse as the primary beneficiary, then as contingent, all at the same time on 1 tier, they name their 2 children and their 2 grandchildren. Now these grandchildren are designated by the owner or inheriting spouse, and they are now designated beneficiaries, and they are not disinherited. So these are easy to correct beneficiary mistakes, but here's the problem. Most IRA beneficiary forms are set up using the 2-tier approach, and it just doesn't work. They show it as a spouse as primary and the children as contingent, and they're excluding their grandchildren. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is really important because you may be disinheriting your grandchildren and not know it. So I'm going to just give you another example. Here's an example. I'm not going to go through the ages, but we have a $200,000 IRA, and here's the beneficiary mistake. They forgot their grandchildren. So with children only, excluding the grandchildren, that $200,000 in this scenario is going to pay a total of $508,000 of income. Folks, if they leave it to their children and grandchildren, 1-tier approach that we just talked about, it's going to jump up to $701,000 of total income. So here's the bottom line. Almost $200,000 more income from a $200,000 IRA just by adding in those grandchildren, because they have that much longer life expectancy and they have a longer tax deferral period. Now, also, beneficiary forms are important for a lot of other reasons. There was a United States Supreme Court ruling on planned beneficiary form, and this was in the case of Kennedy versus the plan administrator for DuPont Savings and Investment. And this case was settled by the Supreme Court January 2009. And you know, when the Supreme Court makes a ruling, that pretty much becomes the law of the land. So the United States Supreme Court unanimously ruled that William Kennedy's ex-spouse received his $402,000 retirement plan because she was the named beneficiary. Well, so far that makes sense. However, Mr. Kennedy died in 2001, but they got divorced in 1994, and under the divorce decree of 1994, the ex-Mrs. Kennedy waived her rights and any benefits from that retirement plan. So it might have been a situation where he got the boat, she got the house, he got the retirement plan, she got the car. They made that decision, and they decided and agreed that these proceeds would be paid to their only daughter, but they failed to change the beneficiary document. Now, why would they fail to change that? Here's why. Both Mr. Kennedy and his attorney believed that the decree of divorce is a legal document, and because it had a more current date, that would be more important, and that would be the document that would be used to determine beneficiaries. Well, they were wrong. When Mr. Kennedy died, Mrs. Kennedy got a call from the custodian saying, how would you like these proceeds handled? She said, well, it's not for me. This is supposed to go to our daughter. It's in our decree of divorce. I'll fax it to you. And she did. Well, DuPont Savings and Investment called her back and said, well, I'm very sorry, Mrs. Kennedy, but you are the designated beneficiary, and we have no choice but to pay this account to you or to transfer it to your name. Well, Mrs. Kennedy thought, well, our daughter and her husband and their 2 kids, maybe they're struggling a little bit, but they're young, and boy, that $400,000 sure would make my retirement more comfortable. And she took the money. The daughter sued. It went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and the daughter lost. The point I want to make is this. The beneficiary form trumps everything. It doesn't matter what a will says, what a trust says, what a decree of divorce says, or any other signed document. The beneficiary is protected by the beneficiary form. So it's really extremely important. Another issue I see in inherited IRAs, I call it too much too fast. You know, it's estimated that the average inheritance in this country is spent between 90 days and 17 months. Now, if you think about the discipline and the sacrifice, it took you over many years to accumulate that retirement account, and what's left in it gets spent by your children or grandchildren in 90 days to 17 months. That's kind of appalling. But here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect your beneficiaries from themselves. And let me make this point. Those who save money are typically better at handling money than those that inherit money. Ladies and gentlemen, a properly built or properly designed beneficiary designation form can help your children from themselves. If they have spendthrift problems, if they're facing a divorce, if they have credit issues, etc. So a properly set up IRA or 401k beneficiary document can prevent losses due to beneficiary spendthrift options. Divorce is a big one. You know, as soon as they get that money, if they get it in a lump sum and they put it in a joint account, in most states, half that money could wind up in the hands of their soon-to-be ex-spouse. It can protect them from bankruptcy, disinheriting grandchildren, the cost of probate, and just as important, bad choices made by inexperienced beneficiaries. So folks, the beneficiary forms are extremely important. What I recommend is get your beneficiary forms checked. If you have your spouse named as primary and your children as contingent, you already have a problem. Folks, this can be done at no cost. There's no obligation, and I will correct any mistakes on your beneficiary forms. Let's move into mistake number 4, and that's not establishing separate accounts. Now, this may sound a little foreign to you. This may sound new to you, but it's very important that you're aware of it. So why is the separate account rule so important? Well, because your beneficiaries will have different ages, and because they have different ages, they have different life expectancy. So, for example, if you have a 12-year-old grandson that inherits a portion of your account, they have a 70.8-year life expectancy. In other words, they're going to receive income for 70.8 years. Now, your daughter, who's 45, has only a 38.8-year life expectancy. Here's the problem. If separate accounts don't get established, both are going to receive income based on that shortest life expectancy, in this case, 38.8 years. Now, let me just give you a little bit of math to back this up. Here's an example. This individual had a $200,000 IRA. The beneficiaries were his 45-year-old daughter and his 12-year-old grandson. And this individual doted over that grandson. Anything that was going to affect that grandson negatively became his immediate enemy. So here's what would happen without separate accounts. He decided to leave half to each. So he's going to leave $100,000 to his daughter, and he's going to leave $100,000 to that 12-year-old grandson. So they each inherit $100,000. Now, without separate accounts, we're going to have to use the same life expectancy for both. That's 38.8 years. So at a 5% rate of return, the 45-year-old daughter will have total stretch distributions or income over 38 years of $313,000, and that 12-year-old grandson is going to have the exact same outcome because he's having to use the mother's life expectancy. So the total of all these distributions, and that doesn't look bad, $626,000 from a $200,000 IRA. Here's what happens if separate accounts come into play. They both still inherit $100,000. Nothing's changed here, but here's where the change is. Now they get to use their individual life expectancies. So the daughter, 38.8 years. The grandson gets to use his much longer life expectancy of 70 years. So for the daughter, everything's going to be the same. It's going to pay out roughly $313,000. Here is where the horsepower is. That 12-year-old, because of the longer life expectancy and longer payout period, instead of receiving $313,000, it's going to pay out a total of $945,000, 3 times as much. Folks, the total distributions just jumped from $626,000 to $1.2 million, and the only thing we did differently is we established separate accounts. Now, why am I telling you all of this? You know, it's become very popular in recent years for people to use a trust or to own a trust. And unfortunately, a lot of times the trust is used to determine who is the beneficiaries of their IRAs and 401ks. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a huge mistake because the separate account rules cannot be used by the beneficiaries of a trust. So essentially, using a trust for your IRA or 401k could literally cost your beneficiaries the use of the separate account rule and a fortune. And folks, this comes right out of IRS publication 590. Mistake number 5 is too much of your IRA at risk. And please don't misunderstand this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having money in the market. A lot of you did very well in the market, particularly these past 10 years. You know, the past 10 years essentially were the market's best 10 years. But you know, as you get older and your time horizon changes and your risk tolerance changes, maybe it's time to get some of those chips off the table and take, with at least some of your money, take a safer position. So if you need income from your IRA, like I know many of you do, or you want to leave a legacy for your family, or maybe a combination of both, I just want to point out risk can ruin those plans. Now, I'm going to go through a couple of famous quotes to prove this point, and you can guess who these are and just shout them out if you know. The most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. Okay, that's Mr. Albert Einstein. Now, here's a more recent quote. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. I'm sure most of you guessed that. That's legendary investor Warren Buffett. And you know, folks, even during 2008, Mr. Buffett found it very difficult to obey his rule number 1 and rule number 2. And I want to show you why. We're going to go back to Albert Einstein's The Miracle of Compound Interest. And I want you to assume that $200,000 is being invested, and it's January the 1st, 2000. So what this investor did is decided, I'm going to put half of that, $100,000, into an S&P account, into any kind of a securities account that's going to perform just like the S&P. I'm going to put the other $100,000 in a fixed account that's compounding at only 3%. Let's see what happens. Well, we all know in the early 2000s we had the tech bubble, and they lost 10, 13, then 23%. That 100,000 dropped all the way down to 59 over here, kind of like the tortoise and the hare. At 3%, it's 109,000. Now, what has to happen when you take a big loss in the market to get your money back? Well, you need some good market years, and that's exactly what happened. We had 5 great years in a row. Highest, the S&P went up 26% in 2003, and it worked. You got right back almost to that 100,000 that you started out with, but over here at 3%, you're at 126. Then came the crash of 2008, the real estate bubble, the lending bubble, and the S&P dropped a little over 38%. Now that accounts down to 61,000, fixed accounts at 130,000. Now let's just wrap it up. 2 good years brought you back to 85,000. Here you're 138. And let's go all the way to the end of 2018. We had mostly good years in here, 1 flat year. 2018, the S&P dropped back 6.24%. So at the end of 18 years, in this account, you'd have 171,000. At 3% compounded with 0 risk, you'd have 175. These are pretty close numbers. Could have been a little bit different. Could have been the S&P didn't drop last year. This might have been higher. But what about those that wanted to retire between 2000 and 2002? Or maybe they wanted to retire in 2008. And they had to postpone those retirement plans to rebuild their retirement accounts. Some in 2008 were seeking employment coming out of retirement in an environment where unemployment was rampant and there was hardly any jobs available. So folks, and again, there is nothing wrong with investing in the market, but at some point when your risk tolerance and your time horizons change, does it make sense to you to put some of that money into a safe place? Mistake number 6 is overpaying fees and loads on IRAs, and the particular culprit here is 401ks and other retirement accounts. It actually can cost you more than income tax over the long run. So let's take the bunkers and let's assume, again, a 5% rate of return. Over here, we're going to show no load, and you've seen these numbers, Archie's income, Edith's RMD, and what got paid out to Glory and the grandchildren, and it totaled out to $1.2 million. Let's just take a 1% load out of that 5% and watch what happens to these numbers. Archie's numbers drop, Edith's numbers drop, Gloria's drop, and the grandchildren, their numbers drop significantly. And instead of paying out $1.2 million at a 5% without a load, it drops down to $768,000 of total income. So folks, fees and loads are important. And as much as you may be comfortable with the fee that you're paying on a particular mutual fund, you owe it to yourself to find out what it is. Mistake number 7 is not considering tax planning strategies, and that's like the Roth conversion is one perfect example. Many of you have probably heard of the Roth conversion, so I'm going to walk through that briefly. From the first day you chose to contribute to a qualified retirement plan like your IRA or 401k, Uncle Sam became your partner. That tax break they gave you was only temporary, only until you take the money out. So everything is going along fine. You're celebrating your 70th birthday. You're surrounded by family and friends. 6 months later, when the smoke from the candle clears, now you're 70 and a half. And remember, you have to start taking taxable required minimum distributions. And folks, this is when your IRA actually becomes an IRU to the Internal Revenue Service. It's not all your money they're going to take out their pound of flesh. So the question you have to ask yourself, is your IRA an IOU to the IRS? Well, it is, because IRA and 401k taxes are due beginning at age 70 and a half. Any withdrawals you take will be fully taxable and at your current tax bracket. So the Roth conversion for some of you may be the best solution, or maybe a portion or partial Roth conversion. And the way it works is you pay tax on the IRA when you convert it to a Roth. Now, don't let people scare you. It's not necessarily going to throw you into a higher income tax bracket, because you don't have to do it all at once. You could do it over a 5-year period or a 10-year period, keeping your tax bracket where it is in a comfortable place. But once you convert, you are no longer forced to take any distributions, and that's where the horsepower is. If you don't need income from your IRA or 401k, you're not going to be forced to take it. It just continues to compound. All future gains and distributions are now income tax free. So for some of you, in some cases, a small tax bite today could save a fortune in taxes tomorrow. So let's take a look at the numbers. You remember I told you that once you convert to a Roth, you don't have to take any distribution. So remember, Archie had that neighborhood bar, and let's say he sold that and he had plenty of money. And so him and Edith didn't want to take distributions under a traditional IRA. They were forced to, but when they converted it to a Roth, they didn't have to. Well, that passed more money on to Gloria and more on to the 2 grandchildren. So the total stretch distributions from the Roth, doing it this way, is almost $2.4 million. Now, if you lay them side by side, the traditional IRA, you'll remember, and you've seen these numbers now for the 3rd time, Archie's RMDs, Edith's and Gloria's and the grandchildren. Next to the Roth, and again, here's where the horsepower is, because Archie and Edith were not forced to take distributions. Look how much more it paid out. So if you want to pass money on, this is a great way to do it. So from the traditional IRA, they would derive $1.2 million taxable. From the Roth, almost $2.4 million tax-free. Now, we just took $1.2 million of taxable income and turned it into almost $2.4 million tax-free. So what does it cost to do that? The tax on that $200,000 turned $1.2 million taxable into $2.4 income tax-free. So if you're concerned about if you're wanting to pass more money on, if you don't need to take or don't want to take distributions from your IRA, make a note. I'm sure we'll talk about the Roth conversion. Mistake number 4, and this is really a big one, ladies and gentlemen, and that's not getting out of that 401k, 403b, TSA, or any other company-sponsored plans and getting into a more flexible IRA. Folks, there's only one reason. Why do people participate in 401ks, 403bs, TSP plans, etc.? There is only one reason to participate, and that reason is this: employer matching funds. It's the free money. And some of you get a 50% match. I've seen 401ks that matched 100%. Who wouldn't want to do that? And you put up with their rule book. You have limited distributions. You have limited investment options. I've seen 401ks that only offered 10 different mutual funds, but you do it to get the free money. But when those contributions stop, if you stop making contributions or retire from the company, that free money ends. Folks, that's when it's time to get your money out of that plan, because the one reason you were in there is now gone forever. So what should you do with your 401k or 403b when you retire? Well, you have 2 choices. It's not really all that complicated. You can leave the funds in the plan, or you can roll the plan to a more flexible IRA. So let's take a look at both. Let's assume you decide to leave your money in the plan. Here's what you're going to be faced with. Plan guidelines can restrict your access to your money. Your investment options are limited. Like I mentioned, I've seen 401ks that only offered 7 different mutual funds. You have limited distribution flexibility to the children and grandchildren because they don't offer the stretch option. And most of them don't offer a Roth conversion. And ladies and gentlemen, you're not getting the free money anymore, but you still have that market risk. So that's where you are if you leave it in the plan. Now let's take a look at rolling it to a more flexible IRA. First of all, it has to be done right. A direct rollover avoids the 20% mandatory withholding, so all of your money gets rolled over. Your money continues to grow tax deferred from a tax standpoint. 401ks and IRAs are treated the same, but now you control where the money's invested, and the entire universe of investments is opened up to you. IRAs offer the Roth conversion and the stretch option, and you can reduce or eliminate market risk by rolling it to an IRA. One other thing I want to mention, some of you here may be a little over 59 and a half or older and still working. Well, I wanted you to know that most 401k and 403bs and all TSP plans offer mutual funds. Now, the market's at an all-time high. I can't predict where it's going to go, but there's a lot of speculation that we're going to see a correction. You can do what's called an in-service transfer to an IRA and protect that principal from a market downturn. So let's say you had $300,000 sitting in your 401k. You can roll that into an IRA and put it in a safe place, protect yourself from that market downturn. And here's the best part. While you're still working, you can continue to make contributions after that in-service rollover and continue to get company matching funds. So you really get the best of both worlds. You get the protection of your principal, and you still get that company matching funds. So folks, 401k, 403b planning can eliminate very costly mistakes for you and also costly mistakes for your family. Now we're going to move into mistake number 9, and we're coming in on the home stretch. And that's having too many retirement accounts. This is an easy one. The average person in this country, when they retire, their money is going to be in approximately 10 different places. Maybe they bought a CD a long time ago. Maybe they bought an annuity. They contributed to a 401k one place. Maybe they were self-employed, contributed to an SEP. It really is a retirement mess. Now, if you think about all the mistakes that can be made with one qualified retirement account, folks, if you have 10, you've just multiplied the chances of making those mistakes by 10. It's just very hard to keep track of. You can consolidate all of those qualified accounts into one easily managed IRA. If you have a Roth IRA, that's going to require 2 accounts. So it's okay to have all these different accounts as you're growing the money, but when it comes time to take distributions, you can simplify your life. And now I'm going to go into the final mistake, and this is the most important mistake in David's book. And ladies and gentlemen, that's not getting a second opinion. Now, let's talk first about your health, where second opinions are very common. You know, let's say that you have a general practitioner, you like them, you've been going to them for years, maybe you see them biannually, quarterly, or maybe you just go in when you're not feeling good. And one time you visit your general practitioner, all these other visits in the past, everything's been fine. This time, your general practitioner or family practitioner is listening to your heart and says, Mr. Jones, I don't like what I'm hearing. Before you leave, stop at the nurse's station. I want you to make an appointment for 7 a.m. next Tuesday. I'm going to do open heart surgery. Well, you might faint at the thought of that. And why? Because your family practitioner doesn't have the skill, the experience, or the training, or the credentials to do open heart surgery, obviously. Here's what will really happen. He's going to refer you to a cardiologist who's going to do a more thorough examination, who may, in fact, refer you then to a cardiac surgeon. The referral system in the medical community, with all the things broken in our healthcare system, this referral system works, and it gets the patient to the person that has the expertise, the skills, and the training to solve the problem. And the reason I'm bringing that up is when it comes to your wealth, there is no such referral system. And let me tell you the dynamics of why. Your general practitioner will always be your general practitioner because he saved your life. He got you where you needed to be to get the help that you needed. When it comes to your wealth, your current advisor is not going to refer you to somebody that has expertise in IRA distribution planning because they don't want to lose you as a client. And hopefully that's why you're here today, and hopefully today you got the information that you were coming here to get. And I can't stress this enough, get a second opinion when it comes to your wealth. Folks, a second opinion from a trained IRA advisor can save your family a fortune in taxes and fees and loads and all the mistakes that we just got done talking about. So I'm going to leave you with 3 realities. Number 1, most IRAs and 401ks, 403bs, or other types of plans, they're broken. They're not set up properly, and most of the time it's in those beneficiary designations. Because of that, most account owners lose a lot of their plan's potential benefits. And the third thing that's really important is most advisors do not specialize in IRA distribution planning, so they don't have the skill, the training, the experience to fix the problems. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I specialize my practice in. So a trained advisor can make the difference between rapid taxation and generations of income. So folks, what I'd like to do today is let's schedule a time just to have an informal meeting. And here's what we'll do in that meeting. We're going to make sure that you're not making any of those top 10 mistakes we just went through. And we're going to make sure your beneficiary forms, this is really important, are set up properly to get the most out of your IRAs, 401ks, and other qualified retirement plans. Oh, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, as I said at the beginning, anybody who comes in for this informal meeting, I'm going to give you a complimentary copy of David's book, Top 10 IRA Mistakes, so that you can really drill down on what's important to you. I want to thank you all for being here today and attending the Top 10 IRA Mistakes and how to avoid IRA tax traps. So, ladies and gentlemen, you just saw the complete IRA consumer workshop. And again, my phone number is 214-705-0124. We got a little bit more to go through, so stay with me for just a couple more minutes. We also have built a seminar and a book. It's called the Top 10 IRA Mistakes. It gets updated every year. This one was updated for 2019. We get all the changes in the tax code so that it will always be relevant. It's also been very effective in building relationships with CPAs and other professionals. Now, I see a lot of advertising about we're going to connect you to CPAs and they're going to refer clients to you. You know, hopefully maybe somebody can do that, but in my experience, it's not really happening. Here's why. Most CPAs don't want to introduce their clients to you because they're afraid you're going to make a mistake and they're going to lose a tax client. And the ones that like you and do want to refer a client to you, frankly, they just don't know how. They're not salespeople, they're CPAs. We've had advisors drop off 2 or 3 of these books with their CPA and say, hey, John, when somebody comes in that has a 401k or a 403b, give them a copy of this book, ask them to read it, have them give me a call. And that has built relationships. It's value added for the CPA, and it's a great way to prospect. So in summary, it's estimated $500 billion rolled from plans to IRAs each year. American has close to $28 trillion in their retirement accounts. 10,000 boomers are facing rollover decisions every single day. Folks, they need your advice. We can get you in front of those people. And the book Top 10 IRA Mistakes is going to help your prospects understand why getting a second opinion from you can save them thousands in penalties, prevent rapid taxation, and reduce excessive fees and loads, particularly in those 401ks. At the end of each chapter, the book is interactive. There's a place where this is the end of the beneficiary chapter. They can write notes. They can write down any areas of concern. And when they flip the page over, there's a place where they can write down any additional information that they want. So when you give them this book, you say, when you read this, at the end of each chapter, write down your questions, write down your areas of concern, and any additional information you want. When we get back together, I'm going to answer all of your questions, address your concerns, and provide you whatever additional information you like. Something we're doing now that has worked very well is we can now personalize this book with your photo and bio, contact information, logo, etc., right on the back cover. It is not in any way inferring authorship or co-authorship. You'll notice it says up here on the top left, this book is provided to you by. So it's a gift you're giving to your clients. You can put your logo on there. Incidentally, you see this red arrow at the bottom. If you have a securities license, we have to put your securities disclaimer down here at the bottom. And we can create these covers to your satisfaction. We have unlimited layout formats. All of these are custom done. Now here's something that we're doing that's really brand new. You notice here's the advisor. Here's Ron's face on the back cover. Here's a short bio. Here are all the services he offers. But my face is on the front cover. I want you to see what happens when we take my face off the front cover. You notice how much more attention is now focused on Ron. Let's go back again here. So let's put me on the back cover. Oops, got a slide ahead of myself there. Now I'm going to take my face off that back cover. And again, look how much more attention that attracts to the advisor. So now we can produce these books with all your information on the cover. I'm going to read a testimonial I got from Rich. Rich is an agent in New Jersey, and he's been using my books for some time. I'm just going to read this. I do seminars and educational programs for prospective clients. I offer David's book free when they come in for an appointment. I've seen my business grow from $5 million annually to over $12 million, and I attribute it directly to the information in his book. Since my picture's been on the back cover, it's given me even more credibility than I ever dreamed of. Thank you, David, and thank you, Rich, for that testimonial. Folks, in summary, the complete IRA rollover system consists of seminar invitations that work, a complete PowerPoint consumer workshop, a workshop training video, which is my voice over the PowerPoint to help you get prepared to deliver that workshop. We have 10 hours of online IRA training. We also have a non-seminar IRA prospecting system, and of course, the seminar in the book, Top 10 IRA Mistakes. All of these together can create tremendous synergy if you want to move your practice into the arena of IRA distribution planning. Folks, if you want to find out more, now please write this down. I'd like you to call Jay Parker. His number is 303-991-0733, or you can email him at jparker@brokerschoice.com. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'm David F. Royer. There's my phone number, 214-705-0124, or you can email me at david@irakeys.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we came in at 56 minutes, so we're on time. I want to thank you again for being on today. And ladies and gentlemen, let me help you make 2019 your best year ever. Thanks again.